I'm Jeff St Laurent, and I'm excited for the call tonight. And I've done quite a few of these calls. This is actually my fourth one where I'm interviewing somebody, and this one is specifically how to turn a Facebook question into a paying client. And my motivation for really doing these is with, obviously my business Selling Coaching at sellingcoaching.com, is to really help coaches that understand the sales process and using real-life, real-world stuff so they can really start to understand how they can not only get their message out there, but then interact and engage with people really with no agenda, but obviously get paid. I want people to get paid for what they're doing because we have this awesome gift of coaching, and we're so passionate about it. But like I've said many times, I started in 2004, and the number one skill set that I learned is that selling aspect. And when we do it authentically and we understand it, it just becomes effortless, and we can get paid for what we're worth. So tonight on the phone, I have my new client, Theresa Brown. Welcome, Theresa.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate being here.
And down from Atlanta, Georgia, right?
Yes.
And, so we connected off of that. I know I have another client down there, and her name will come up here as well. And I'm excited to have you on, and thank you for being able to take the time to kind of share your end of this, because the objective tonight is we're going to go through the email thread, and you're going to see the video is going to be on this. So as we go through, when you're watching this video, you're going to see the email thread that Theresa and I are going to refer to. In each email or Facebook post, if you will, corresponds with a number. So this way, you can follow along and see what went through. And this is like no holds barred, completely transparent, unscripted, unedited. Theresa and I just didn't have any conversation before this other than, show up to the call, here's the thread, let's go through it, and let's just kind of talk back and forth about, kind of what was going on. And my perspective is going to be kind of like what's going on in my head, in terms of the actual coach. So those people listening to this is going to be, you are the coach, and you're going through this, and so I want to teach you and help you understand kind of my thought process and why I say what I say. What do I look for? What's my philosophy behind what I'm doing? And when I bring Theresa on is, as I go through that, I'm going to kind of throw it back to her and kind of say, hey, so what, when you got this, thread back, or when you got this post or email back, what was going through your mind? What were you thinking? How did this come across? And this way we can kind of get inside, Theresa's mind, or she's kind of role modeling, if you will, the potential client, the people that are out there. And obviously when I did what I did here and what I teach is I didn't know Theresa at all. I didn't know she was a potential client. But what I like to teach is that, everyone out there is a potential client, especially even if it's not within your demographic in terms of your niche. But I want you to go out there and engage authentically with no agenda. And so this particular thread, we'll start off with number one right there. We'll jump right into this. And so, Theresa, you have that in front of you?
I do.
All right, perfect. So, Theresa, you posted this in a Facebook group, and a coaching Facebook group. I don't remember which one it was, but that's really irrelevant at this point. But you posted this on November 21st. So why don't you start off and just say kind of like what was your mindset going into this post so we can get a feel for kind of what you were looking for to start off.
Yeah, so I have a coaching product that I wanted to launch at the beginning of the year. And I knew that I needed to have a sales page built that I can drive traffic to in order to get the audience that I needed to sell this coaching package to. So I went into the Facebook groups that I belong to that deal with coaching, and I just posted this question: is there someone that can help me to create this sales page? That's what I was looking for, a sales page.
So you were looking for someone specifically to say, hey, can you make a recommendation, or do you actually create the sales page yourself?
Yes.
Gotcha. So that's the post right there. And what I do when I'm on my end is I'm a member of different groups where on Facebook, and these are typically private groups, where my my audience hangs out, meaning my audience being, mostly new coaches or coaches that are starting off or really trying to grow their coaching business. And obviously I teach them the sales aspect, but from a personal coaching standpoint, I really work with them on, growing their business and moving them forward. And so what I look to do is I get all these notifications, as I'm sure a lot of you do, if you're a member of groups, in your inbox. And on a daily basis, multiple times a day, I will just scan through these, and I will just see of the coaches who are asking questions, which are the questions that I feel I have an expertise in within what I'm doing. Because they ask a lot of questions that I'm like, yeah, I could answer, but it's not my thing. It's not my niche. I want to focus on what I'm doing. I either look at, what content have I already created that I could maybe refer them to that would be of value to them, or could I create something or just simply answer a question and give them a resource, et cetera, that would help them out. And my intention behind this is, and this is an important key, is my intention with this is to purely go in and just give value and just answer questions, make referrals, help them out with no agenda. And that's the key to any of this stuff is to do that. So if we go to the thread, that's the post like we said, and I'll scroll down just a little bit. Now the cool part is you posted this on November 21st, basically at 11 in the morning. Mm-hmm. We had some replies basically right after that, and you replied back, and then nothing until I pop in there, and I actually come in there at, what time did I come in there?
7:35 on 11/23.
On 2 days. So that's 2 days. That's really like 2.5 days later.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So to give you an idea of just like the time frame, And my standpoint is looking at that as like, yeah, she needs someone to create basically a landing page. And I'm just like, gosh, she might have heard of this before, but I'll just read through what I wrote and kind of like my mindset behind it is, hey, leadpages.net is awesome, and I want to give her a link to make it easy. Like whenever I refer people to something, I want to like bring them right to it. I really want to help them out the best and kind of answer any questions they might have about it. So I say, hey, they can host a sales page there, and I say there's a plugin for WordPress so that your site can host it. And sometimes I write a little bit more that the person might not understand what that is, but I do that not so that they'll ask a question, but more if they're interested and they're engaged, they will reply back and ask a question. So I said, hey, there's a plugin so your WordPress site can host it. You can get the standard annual option, and it will be awesome. So I even remember when I was clicking this over there, like I have lead pages, but when I went over there, I'm like, oh, I know they have 3 different level options. And so I like went over to lead pages to get the link, and then I looked at the different options because I'm like, I want to tell her, like, there's a lot of different options, but if you get the standard annual and I use their terms, you'll be fine because everything you need is going to be there. So I kind of wanted to go that extra step and help her out in that respect. I said all the templates are there. They're responsive, so you can customize it easily. You can add in pixel codes from Facebook, whether you're driving traffic to track results, and then later retarget those people. So as I add this, I want to be concise, but my mindset behind it is I want to help them out, give them what they're asking for. That would hopefully just either solve their issue, or maybe she's going to be like, oh, I've heard of that, but I'm looking for something else. But also I want to give them a little bit more because I also want to show that, hey, I'm knowledgeable about this, and I want to give them the sense that, hey, if you have more questions, I can absolutely help you out on this. I don't want to give any feel like I'm trying to sell them something or anything like that. I just want to be able to let them know that, hey, I can help you out on this, give them enough where they can get their answer, but if they also want, they can engage and give me some more questions. So I'm curious, Theresa, like we'll go to your reply to this, but I'm curious when you receive this, what are your thoughts initially?
So I didn't want to create the sales page myself, and so with the suggestion of lead pages, I saw the notice come in, I saw the answer, and I was like, I don't really want lead pages, so I just didn't respond.
Mm-hmm. And so that was it right there. Like that's just where you went.
That would have been the end of the road for me. Yes.
Okay. And so my question is, so now this happened here, and what I did is I'm going to go to the number 2 thread here. and if you notice the time, so 11:23 at 7:36 p.m. And right here, I responded here 11:23 at 7:35 p.m. So I did this. So it's interesting you said that. So basically you saw this and you're like, yeah, that's not the direction I want to go in. Didn't respond. So I go, and this is what I do normally all the time, is when I respond to something in one of these groups on Facebook, etc., I will then go over to the person's profile. I'll friend request them, and I just want to check them out. I'm like, I want to look at their website. Do they have a website? What do they do? And then I'll send them a private message. And so literally a minute later, this is the thread number 2 here, I sent and I said, hey, I saw your question in an IPEC thread, so that's the thread. Sent you an answer. Let me know if you have questions on that. And then I noticed that one of her friends, it was a mutual friend, so anytime I see a mutual friend, when I go to someone's profile, I will click on who is this mutual friend, because I want to see who this person is, right? Do I know them? Are they a client of mine? Who are they basically? And this person happened to be Ira Wright, and Ira Wright for me is, a client. I've been working with her for, it's been a while, like 6+ months. It could be even longer than that. But I said, hey, I noticed you know Ira Wright, with exclamation mark. How do you know her? As you can see, I'm quite excited by my punctuation here. She's actually my client. I'm working with at Agora Coaching Business. If I didn't see Ira Wright, odds are I would have said, hey, I saw your question, sent you the answer. Let me know if you have any questions. Don't be a stranger. Please feel free to ask. That's kind of where I would have left it. But whenever I see something in common, like maybe we went to the same coaching school, like IPEC, we both went to coaching school. If there's a common friend, I will say, hey, I notice we're common friends with so-and-so. How do you know them, especially if I know them? So now I'm going to throw it back to you, Theresa, because we go back now here. There's the third thread, which is your response to this. And you actually respond the next day at 10:31 p.m. So I'm curious, so you went from basically not wanting to respond to the lead pages thread. I come in here. Tell me what's going on in your mind when you see this, and then what makes you respond the next day the way you did.
So my initial question had to do with having a sales page created for me. I didn't think that lead pages was the solution to that particular question. But then when you re-engaged and you mentioned that Ira, someone that I knew, was one of your coaching clients, it occurred to me that I had a need for a coach. And I've had a need for a coach, but didn't know how to go about finding a coach, didn't really put any energy behind it other than, saying, wow, I really need a coach.
Right.
But then when I saw this question and it said, well, I'm coaching Ira, I'm like, all right, that's what I need. I need a coach.
Right. Interesting. Like you knew, like it was in the back of your mind, I guess, that like, yeah, a coach would be beneficial to me.
Yes.
But you just were just kind of going about your world, doing your thing, but never like actively pursuing it.
Exactly.
So like this just kind of appeared, like I followed up and I appeared and I said, hey, I'm coaching her. So it kind of just was like, I need a coach.
Right.
And so when you wrote, because I got this, obviously the next day, and it's like, hey, Jeffrey, you might be the answer to my prayers. In another way, I would love to speak to you for some coaching on getting my product launch. When you wrote that to me, kind of what was, just elaborate on that thought.
So I'm spiritual. I am a spiritual being, and I do a lot of praying. And I believe in the law of attraction. So I believe that I attract things to me. So even though I wasn't putting any physical energy into finding a coach, I did send a request out, right? And I just believe that because I sent a request out in my mind in the form of a prayer, that the coaching was presented to me. So it's like, I think I need a sales page, but what I really need is a coach to help me get this product launched. and just sending that request out there. And I know it's kind of sound weird. A lot of people don't believe in that, but I just do. I believe in it, and it works for me. So I said, you're the answer to my prayer, right? And then,
Yeah.
as you see, I said I'd love to speak to you about some coaching on launching the product. So I moved off of I need someone to build a page onto, wait a minute, I need somebody to help me launch this product.
Right, right. It's exciting and I don't think it's crazy at all. Like, I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and that's why I encourage people to get out there because, I mean, gosh, like, I could have not responded to that, right? It was easy for me to just let that one go. You know, a couple people had responded. You didn't really get an answer for that, but and that's why I always encourage people. It's like, just take the time to respond to people, especially when you can contribute to them, and because you never know what's going to happen as a result of this. So really cool.
You're the only one that followed up because I got a lot of suggestions from people, you know, as you can see in that thread and in some other groups I belong to. And I got a lot of suggestions from people, and, you know, some were, okay, I can consider that, and others were, no, that's not going to work for me. But you were the only one that took the time to private message me and engage in conversation, too.
There you go. So thank you for pointing that out. Yes. So that's a key point is taking the time to just go the extra step, follow up with people, and still follow up in a very engaging way. And I'm curious. I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to scroll back up to the original message because this is important. If we go back to the original message, this is at least in the thread that you posted, because I guess you posted this in other threads as well then.
Yes.
Okay. So right here, and we're not naming names or anything like that, but you know, this person here, you know, basically said, "Good question." We're back on the number one there, and then someone else responded, you know, do you need someone to write your sales page or develop your sales page or create True Sales Funnel, which is a different project altogether? And sometimes I look at other people's responses, and it's not like they're bad responses because, you know, obviously you wrote, you know, interesting questions, but basically, you know, thank you very much. I have the great content. But sometimes people, when, you know, they can help you, it's very easy to see their eagerness to kind of work with you or do something with you on another level. And I'm curious for Theresa, with you, like, have you found that, not maybe here, for instance, but like in other things, like when you post some things, have you found the people that where it's kind of more obvious that they're trying to maybe sell you on something or get you to maybe do something with them? I'm curious.
Well, see, let me tell you what the difference here. So Christy is a coach that I had worked with, and she had actually helped me to develop the coaching product, right?
Nice.
So where you see there when I say your Power Hour helped with that. She helped me develop the product, and that the work that she and I did was the outcome was the content. So that's where I got the content for the sales page. So Chrissy, me already having a relationship with her and having been satisfied with the work that I had done with her, this was an opportunity for her to do the product coaching that you're doing, except she didn't follow up with me.
Gotcha. Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? So I understand why she wrote these questions here because we had a coaching relationship in the past.
That's good to know that too.
Yeah, and if she had a private messaged me instead of you, I would probably be working with Chrissy.
Okay, this is great stuff. My intuition was like, I got to talk about that because I wanted to see, because it looked like you had a past relationship with your comment down there.
Yes.
And it looks like you did something like that. So you're saying, though, if she had private messaged you, odds are you would have just ended up working with her.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, it's good to hear that. So that goes to show us, like, I'm going to point these things out, you know, when, if you will, the student's ready, you know, the coach needs to appear, right? In this case, and you had a relationship with this person, you know, and I've known her. She's got a great group, and she does some great things, you know. But it's really interesting to hear that from that perspective. And there was time too because I didn't come in till 2 days later, right? Like they said on the 23rd.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, something was telling me I need to go back to point that out. But so I'm glad you had said that. So let's go back down now.
I just wanted to address what you said because of our previous relationship. Christy could have private messaged me, and she could have said, "Hey, Theresa, I see you're asking questions on the page. Is there something that I can help you with?" I would have immediately jumped on that. That's all she had to say, because I had a previous relationship with her, but she didn't do that.
Interesting.
So I just wanted to point that out.
This is why I love to do these calls, because this is the stuff you would never, ever know, right? Mm-hmm. This is the stuff you would never hear, and thank you, Theresa. Anything like that, when I throw it back to you, like whatever, just volunteer those things, because this is what I love to hear this stuff, but it's important to learn for us to hear this. So you wrote back, you just knew might be my answers to prayers. We went over that stuff. So that was the next day at 10:31 a.m. And I remember it very specifically. So I'm going to scroll down to thread number 4, 10:31 at 10:35 a.m. Now, on that day, I'm getting out of my workout. And literally, like, I got out of my workout, I'm over at like 10:15. By the time I get to my car, it's probably right about 10:30 or so. So I get in my car and I check my phone and I see, any messages, whatever, and I see this thing right on my screen on my phone saying, "Hey, Jeffrey, you might be the answers to my prayers in another way. I'd love to speak to you for coaching on getting my product launch." So this is where, like, I like to show this stuff because it in a lot of ways it forces me to walk my talk. But in anything I teach, I'm like, the timing of your follow-up is now. I'm like, when someone says, especially, "I'd love to speak to you for some coaching on getting my product launch," that doesn't happen very often, right? And Theresa, you're a coach. You do consulting as well. Like, that it's rare when people just kind of raise their hand and say something that strong.
Especially when you don't have a previous relationship with them.
Absolutely. And as of the day before, we didn't know each other at all, and literally at this point, we've had 2 interactions.
But can I tell you what I did behind the scenes? So you mentioned Ira. Ira is a friend of mine. We went through coaching school together. Okay. So then I private messaged Ira and I said, "Hey, Jeff St Laurent said that you guys did some coaching together. Can you tell me, was it successful? How did it go?" And so Ira private messaged me back and gave me some feedback on you.
Excellent.
So when I said I would love to speak to you about some coaching on another product, I had already gotten feedback from my friend that we had in common.
Okay. And I'm assuming she gave you some good feedback since you ended up hiring me and continued the conversation. Actually, it's kind of cool. Ira has a success stories testimonial on my website as well. She's a great girl. So you did a little behind the scenes research, if you will, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And what was helpful about that for you, like with this process, engaging with me?
About doing the behind the scenes research?
Yeah, and like talking to her. Like what did you receive from that?
So it gave me some social proof. So it was like, okay, he said he worked with Ira. There's a lot of people selling coaching. Let me see if Ira thought that she received value from his coaching. Gotcha. And so when she said she did, she's a friend of mine. Obviously, I know her. We went to the same coaching school. We were in the same coaching class, so we have a similar philosophy and approach towards coaching. And so if you gave her what she was looking for, then the assumption was that you would be able to give me what I was looking for. And I say that because, there's a lot of different coaching schools, and some coaches go to school, some coaches don't. And because you had already connected with her, then I knew that you had the qualifications to coach me without having any type of certification or education history or anything.
Awesome. Great to hear that. And so that's something to understand too is that where, and I've used this before too. So if you're connecting with people like this, and they're mutual friends with, especially a client of yours, definitely use that and saying, hey, I've worked with this person. How do you know them? But I know in other communications, I've referred people and volunteered referrals because some people are selective in terms of, and they do their research. And sometimes people do want to hear referrals. So if you do have clients that you created a lot of success with that are big fans of yours, like especially if they're going through something similar that your potential client's looking for, don't be afraid to use those as well. So back to the thread here on number 4. Like I said, I'm kind of on my workout. I see this thread that she brought in at 10:31, and then so it just pulled it out right there. And then it's like a few minutes later, I'm coming out. I'm like, shoosh, I'm gonna respond to this right away. So I'm like, hey, I love being the answers. I like being the answers to your prayers. LOL. And again, I like to keep it. When I say formal, meaning I like to keep it, moving forward, but I also like to keep it light and just show kind of who I am and my personality. So, because I was like, wow, I love being the answer to someone's prayers. I mean, who's ever said that to me before, And I said, I absolutely love to help you do that, and I want to show my enthusiasm. I always tend to overuse exclamation marks, but I love doing that. Capitalize words to emphasize it because it's just writing. And I say, hey, I'll tell you what, go to this link, fill out the form at the bottom. This will give me a good idea of exactly what you're looking for. If you're serious, I have some time tomorrow. We could set up a comp session and go from there. As soon as I get the form, I can send you a few times. How does that sound? And then here's the link. So my reasoning for doing this is that, at this point in my mind, I'm like, here's this person that I don't know at all, kind of just, hey, here's lead pages, and then, private messaged her, and then the next day I just get a basic, hey, you might be the answer to my prayer. So I'm like, I don't know, how serious this person is or what their intentions are. So as I teach people, I'm like, before you just give out a complimentary session, you want to qualify people a little bit and kind of just find out, what are their intentions and how serious are they, and, what does she mean by, I would love to speak to you on some coaching to get a product launch, and what does, being the answers to your prayers actually mean? So basically, I just said, if you're serious, if you notice, I'm showing my enthusiasm. Hey, I'd love to help you, but I'm like, you know what? If you're serious, go to this link, do this. I like to give people instructions. You want to qualify people a little bit and kind of just find out, what are their intentions and how serious are they? For number 4, at 10:35, I wrote that to you, and then, over an hour later or so, I'm like, haven't seen anything from her. So I'm like, all right, I'll just send another message. Hey, did you send the form? Been looking for it, And I did triple exclamation mark. I do it naturally, but so it's not like, oh, I did that on purpose, but I just do it naturally. But I do that because I want to show my enthusiasm, for it. And then 1:05 p.m., I still hadn't heard from her yet. And this is the next one, the number 6. And so I basically just wrote back. I'm like, click the link at the bottom of the message, scroll to the bottom of the web page, and the form is there. Here's the link again. And then you kind of responded, just sent it. So I'm curious, Theresa, when you had gotten my message, a little bit later and then a little bit later, and then you responded, how was that on your end in terms of following up? 'Cause I know some people are afraid to follow up, and they'll just wait.
Yeah, so the follow-up was good for me because what happened, I had gotten distracted, and I was doing something else. So when you followed up the first time, I went in and I did it, but then you followed up the second time, and then I was like, I just sent it. So it was kind of like a pride for me to follow up. So when you did number 5 at 11:43, I went in. I was like, oh, yeah, let me go in and I do this form, and I did it. And then at 1:05, you said, you hadn't received it, so I went in and I did it again and sent it to you, let you know at 1:10 that I had redid it and resent it.
Okay. And so, in other words, that follow-up, it was good to kind of keep you on it and keep you going.
It was.
Because you get distracted. Good. And that's why I was curious because, sometimes a lot of people feel like, oh, my God, should I follow up? I mean, realistically, if I go back, you sent this at 10:31 a.m. I sent it at 10:35, my reply on number 4 here. And then, I responded basically just an hour and 10 minutes later saying, hey, did you send the form? Been looking for it. So, and the reason I was so aggressive, if you will, with that time frame being at only just over an hour was like, here's someone who seemed like she was really serious, and I'm like, hey, I'm following up with her. And so I just encourage people to never feel like a pest because just like Theresa said, like, yeah, I just got busy and I get distracted. And it didn't mean that she wasn't serious, but oftentimes if we don't follow up, who knows what would have happened? I mean, I'm curious, like, if I didn't follow up with you there, like, can you kind of extrapolate, like, what do you think you would have done if I didn't remind you? What if I didn't message you back at all that day?
Yeah, so I'm not really sure. I don't know if I would have eventually reached back out to you. I don't know. I might have just gotten distracted and stayed distracted. I'm not sure.
And you know what, honestly, and the reason I ask that is I'm curious because a lot of people, they will stay distracted and they'll just drift away. I've seen that with people that I've worked with before. I'm like, no, follow up with them. And I've done it enough that when I have done it, people have reminded me and saying, thank you so much for reminding me. So it doesn't mean that they're not interested, but we have to remember, people have like lives, and they're busy lives, right? And like the whole point of us being a coach is like a lot of it is accountability and follow-up. People just need accountability on their dreams, right, no matter what you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
And following through with that. And at the end of the day, like, to me, by really staying on someone, anytime I've really been on someone, they've always, come back and said, thank you so much for your follow-up. Thank you so much. And I love how responsive you are. That means a lot, or it impresses me. And people value that. And what you're doing is you're starting to show the value in working with you. You don't do it because of that, but you do it because it's just how you roll and it's how you operate. And that's what I want to teach you is like, be on people. And, if you keep doing it and she never got back to me and it's, days or weeks later and I'm still like, after, repetition here and then maybe a couple times during the rest of that week, if she never got back to me, there's got to be a point where it's just like, okay, this person is off the planet. Maybe I'll throw it back in a couple weeks after that, but stay on these people. So she wrote back, hey, I just sent the form at 1:10 p.m. On thread 8, I'm like, 1:27, I'm like, all right, still waiting for it. Because I remember I was in my office, and I'm like, I kept hitting refresh on my screen in between, like, doing some other emails and stuff. And I'm like, hey, I'm just going to write her back. I'm like, this is weird because I just received it. I remember I went to my website, and I'm like, oh, God, is my website not working? Are the forms not working? And I went to the form, and it worked fine. So I'm like, you know what? I want to take this under control here. I'm like, we need to talk. And this is what I always tell people, like, when possible, talk on the phone. So I'm like, hey, what's your number? If you're available, I'll give you a quick call now. That was at 1:27 p.m. 1:29, she sends me over her number. Obviously, I blocked out her number. This way you don't have to spam. If only so many people would listen to it, right? So you wrote right back, and so obviously you were there, and basically we spoke on the phone. We spoke for, a good 10 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, like when I wrote the message, hey, what's your phone number? If you're available, I'll give you a quick call, and then obviously you sent it, and then I pretty much called you right afterwards. Talk about what that was like on your end and what your thoughts were around that.
That was good. Like, I felt a sense of urgency there, right? And, like, when you followed up with me, it broke through the noise. Because, it's just a lot of noise in my life, right?
Yeah.
And because, we suffer from information overload, so there's a lot of noise. So then you broke through the noise and got my attention. And when you got my attention, then it's like, yeah, I feel your urgency. I have the same urgency. So then I gave you my phone number just to let you know that I felt the same urgency that you felt, that we should connect.
That's perfect, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all the great signs. Like right away, the fact that she's responding and once I've engaged her, she's kind of going back and forth with me. That's why I always highlight the timestamps, because it's important to see the timestamps. It doesn't mean if people don't get back to you right away, like obviously if we go back to the other threads, like, it took her over a day to respond or so, or she responded the next morning initially. But once we get going, this thing just kind of, took off from there. So, for me, that 10-minute phone call was just like, I wanted to connect with her. I wanted to find out, hey, how interested is she? Where's she at? And then, hey, let's transition this over the email and let's kind of like get this going. So basically, we got off the phone at 1:52. If you look at thread 10 there, I basically messaged her on Facebook. So this is still on Facebook. Hey, I just sent you an email. And then if we go to thread 11, which is basically same exact time. So basically I sent her an email and then I messaged her on Facebook. And I did that twice just to be sure that she got my email. So she's looking for it, because I know she was responsive on Facebook. So now I just sent her an email. I don't know what's going on in her world, or if it went to spam or whatever it is. So I want to make sure that, she's actually getting it. So essentially I made sure by messaging her, so she got it there. And so on thread 11 now, this is my actual email. So again, I sent this at, same time, 1:52. And I basically, and let me read through this real quick, and then we'll throw it back to you to get your thoughts on this. But, I said, hey, it was great speaking with you briefly, and I'm thrilled you reached out to ask for help. I would suggest that we schedule a complimentary mentor session call. And so this is where I kind of like go through, and we talked about this briefly on the phone, but I kind of reiterated that and I want to show her kind of like I'm taking control of this and I'm guiding her, like I'm taking over. This is how we do it. And I always tell people, I'm like, when you're working with a potential client, like once they've expressed interest and she clearly has interest and she's following up and we talked on the phone, like now it's your turn to like, okay, what do I do? Tell them what to do. Tell them how you operate. Give them clear instructions with a very few options so they can decide and make it easy for them to move forward. So I said, let's schedule a complimentary mentor session call. This is what I'd suggest. And if you notice, I always leave it, here's what I'd suggest. I don't like to tell them what to do, but I'm also guiding them. Here's what I suggest that we do. This way we can clarify where you want to go and how I can assist you in getting it all going. And it will give you a good feel for what we can accomplish together should you decide to hire me as your mentor coach. And I always like to bring that in there because I never want people to feel pressure or that they have to or like this is the thing. Even when they express interest, I want to always leave, I'll make them feel like they have complete control over the decisions and the direction that we're going in. And the reason I do that is because it helps people feel or take off any pressure, and it allows them to be a lot more open and honest with you. And when it comes to the selling aspect, especially when we do compliment sessions and we get to the end, if there are objections, and again, if we go through this process and qualify people and we have a very open dialogue and honest dialogue like we're role modeling here, oftentimes you won't get objections because you'll understand where that person's at. But what this does is it allows people to open up, feel trusting, and when you know where someone is at every point along this process from initial contact through to decision at the end of a comp call, you're going to understand where they're at, and they're going to be honest with you, so they're not going to have to kind of make up stuff like, oh, well, you know what, I'm just so busy right now, I don't have the money, or, let me go think about it, and then I'll never get back to you again. So that's why I like to use this language, and I want to bring it out. So I say, and again, if this sounds good, so I'm back on that thread there, if this sounds good, so if you notice, I'm like, hey, if it sounds good, I'm still leaving it up to this person, right? Pick a time I have for tomorrow, and once you confirm it, I'll send over a few questions for you to answer before our call. And I say here 2 times. I'm available at 12 and 3. I always put time zone just in case, which works best. And I say, if not, send me a few times that do, and I'll see what I can arrange. I look forward to hearing from you and getting you going. We can accomplish so much before the end of the year. And I'm throwing out exclamation marks like it just, I've got a bucket full of them. So I'm telling her what's going to go on. I'm leaving it up to her. I'm very unassuming with things. But I'm also showing my genuine enthusiasm and saying, like, baby, let's do this, right? We're gonna work good together. So, Theresa, let's get on to your response in thread 12, because obviously it's just a quick, hey, 3 p.m. works for me. But as you get this email from me, talk to me, what your thought process is, because you responded, just 6-7 minutes later.
Right. So it's like I'm glad that you're leading me along, because as you can see, my answers are very short, and I just take a few seconds and I go answer, and I'm not really lending any further
No, you're
thought
not.
to the process. It's like my world moves real fast, so I got to make decisions fast. So I'm like, okay, great. He's taking over this process. I'm really into this process, so I immediately go to my calendar and see if I can fit it in one of those 2 times and respond to you just to let you know, yep, I could meet with you tomorrow.
Perfect. And so you not lending things to the conversation, I'm curious, is that more on purpose or just the nature of you're just moving and busy?
I'm moving, and so here I'm just a very cryptic person. That's just the way I do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning to be more personable. I tend to the bottom line. And so here, that's what you got. You got my bottom line. I didn't engage in a conversation with you. One, I didn't feel like I needed to massage your ego or anything like that.
Right, yeah.
And 2, it was like, yeah, this is it. I know we're going to talk more when we get on the phone, and so I'm just arranging a time. And that's just the way I felt. I didn't feel like we needed to do any more talking, anything more than we had during those 10 minutes.
Perfect. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good to hear that. And for people to see this, too, it's, oftentimes when I just want to never assume things, and another call that I did in how to turn an email comment into a paying client with Brittany a couple weeks ago. I think it was call 14. She was the same way, but she was being cryptic on purpose. So, like, she was at that point, and she was like, I was, writing emails twice as long as this and asking questions. I mean, our email thread was like, 20, 30 emails long. And all along the way, I was like extracting things from her, but she wasn't giving me anything along the way. So sometimes people are just like, in your case, it's like, yeah, I got a lot going on. And it's just like, give me the bottom line, and thank God he's taken over this. And, yep, 3 p.m. works. Boom, I'm good to go. And so I'm on that other end, just like, I don't want to assume anything, but I'm like, hey, she gave me exactly it. So that's it. So it's good to hear you kind of talk about that, because at the end of the day, we're just looking to move forward with people. So moving on, and it moves pretty quick from here. So, on thread 13, that's basically where it's just like, hey, I emailed back, I think, 3 minutes later saying awesome. And this is the standard email. If you watch any of the other videos that I do or work with me with people or have hired me, this is the email that you get. And I do this with every single person, because this is what I've cultivated since 2004 of the confirmation email. All I do is I change the date for people, and that's it. And it's these 4 questions that I like to ask people. And what this does is it further qualifies people, and it further lends me to understand, where are they at, what are they looking for, and if they see value in our time together, would they consider hiring me? And even though we might have already addressed these in either a personal conversation on the phone or emails, to this point, I still always ask them, because, again, it's important to say, hey, are people following instructions? And then how much do they take in terms of sharing what they're looking here, right? Sharing what they're looking for. So I sent that. And then if we go down to thread 14, this is the next day, and it's pretty much a full day later. Our comp session was scheduled for the 25th at 3 p.m., as we said. It was about almost 2 p.m., and I hadn't heard back from her other than that first reply of, hey, 3 p.m. is great. And I hadn't gotten the answer to the 4 questions. And it happens before, but especially when I haven't heard back from somebody, and it's the next day. And again, this relationship is still very new. I mean, this is literally a day after we first really started connecting. And I say, hey, I'm on thread 14 there. I say, I'm reconfirming our call today at 3 p.m. If you can get a chance to answer those 4 questions and get them to before the call, it would be great. So just a little friendly reminder of our call and then also the 4 questions. And if you notice, I also went back to Facebook, which is in thread 15, and basically a minute later, and I basically said the same thing, looking forward to our call today. And again, I gave her the number, and I sent an email earlier asking for you to reply to those 4 questions, and I said game on. So just another friendly. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just say that this is good because sometimes I'm Facebook attentive and sometimes I'm email attentive, right? And in this case, you would have caught me in which area that I happen to be in. So you were trying to get my attention in 2 different ways, which is another important thing to do to break through the noise.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like, especially with the noise, it's helpful. And also with this is the reason I do this. These are the 2 methods that we started communicating with. Facebook was the original one, but then I brought it over to email. I still don't know her preferred method of communication. And now that we're coaching together, email's been working just fine. But with people, I always tell you, there's so many different ways of communicating with people with, all the social platforms and the instant messages and email, and then there's texting, and then there's phone. There's so many different ways. And I do some videos on this as well in the university where it's like you just find out the preferred method. But in the meantime, if you don't know their preferred method, use whatever means possible. And to this point in the thread at 15 here, we've used phone, Facebook, and email, just phone once, but basically in a bunch of different combinations. And it's been working. And without that, we might not have even gotten to this point. So we had the call at 3 p.m. She hired me, and then in thread 16 is basically my welcome message. And now to kind of close this off, Theresa, I'm curious, and I like to ask this question, at what point in this process, if you can somehow pinpoint it, but at what point in the process did you hire me in your head?
When we were on the mentoring call and you got me, and it was like, okay, so we connected and it felt like you understood where I was coming from. And it also felt like you had been in my shoes before and you found a way out of my shoes and you were willing to share with me how you got out of my shoes.
Gotcha.
And so and I think we connected in that I'm a very hands-on person, and you recognize that in me. So
definitely. So as you started to realize that about me, that's when in your head you were like, yeah, I'm going to work with this guy.
Mhm.
Okay. And so before the call, you hadn't mentally hired me yet then, correct?
No.
Right. So you were considering it.
I was considering it, yeah.
And I like to ask that because some people will come to a complimentary call and in their head they've already hired you, and the complimentary call is kind of just kind of reconfirming what they feel and reconfirming that, yes, this is the right person for me and I'll move forward with it. Some people, like in this case, she's obviously was serious and obviously considering it, but it wasn't until the points that you outlined right there that kind of pushed you over the edge, so to speak, and we were ready to go.
Well, I knew that I was going to make a purchasing decision for a coach. And if, the call didn't work out with you and I, then I was going to go back to those same resources and like I asked the question for someone to help me with a sales page, I was going to ask for a coach. So
Nice.
what it did was it showed me that going out in my Facebook groups and asking questions would get me the resources that I was looking for. But I don't know, we hit it off. You got me, and so it was like, okay, I don't have to look any further. I'll just work with Jeff.
Nice. And Theresa, I'm so excited that we're working together. It's been fun so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I just love it. I love the way you work, and I could tell right away, like you said, it's like I got right away like this. Yeah, she needs me to rein in on her and keep her focused on checklists and keeping her, narrowing your focus to keep you moving forward. So it's been a pleasure.
Mhm.
And last thing I'll say to close this off is this is just another example of why it's so important to not only be getting your message out there and interacting and engaging with people on a regular basis, but when I always talk about, when it comes to selling, it's all about two things, need and timing. Not only that someone has a need, in this case, obviously, she had a need for a coach that was kind of like in the back of her mind that she put out in a prayer that said, hey, I want a coach. And when the coach appears, I will be ready for it. But she wasn't proactively doing it. So there's the need. But the timing of it is when people are ready. And when the timing is now, you've got to be in front of people. And you never know when that timing is. And that's why that consistency is so important. And if I didn't there's so many pieces through this interaction that you can see where if I just didn't do some basic things that I like to teach people here, we would not be talking today. You would not be my client, and you would be, someone else would be working with you, right?
Mhm.
And that's why it's so important to be able to learn from these things and really engage with people, no agenda, and follow up and be there and be in front of them, but also just don't be a pest in front of them and don't be pushy with things. But as you can see in the method with which I teach it there is it's like you can be there and be consistent and in front of them, but not feel like you're pushing them in a direction that they don't want to go in. It's allowing them to take the steps. You're just kind of showing them and recommending the steps that they can take. So, Theresa, thank you so much for taking the time out of your obviously busy world to do this, and I appreciate your insight and feedback.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks so much.